Hi, welcome back to the Apprentago podcast. And today we've got a very exciting guest. So I'm joined today by Sam Okusaga. So he is the co-founder of Worth of Mouth, a Gen Z recruitment marketing agency, a former degree apprentice at Pearson, and currently a product manager at Tesco Technology. And fun fact, he was actually mentored by the CEO of Tesco UK. But before we get into that, Sam, tell us about the start of this journey. What were you doing in school and how did you get to where you are now?
Cool. Thank you. That was a really lovely introduction. So school was interesting because I went to a sixth form. I would say it's predominantly different to traditional sixth forms. Mm-hmm. And that's where I learned about apprenticeships and learned about terms of careers. So the sixth one I went to was a grammar school set to sixth form, which was partnered with a private school, which had, and we mirrored their curriculum, and they had a curriculum where they had boarding school, so those school students had to come in 6 days a week. Mm-hmm. We didn't have boarding school, so that meant we had to come to 6 days a week as well. And I think that's sort of where like my education experience just went sort of like a different path, and I think that's some of those experiences led me to taking alternative paths post that anyway, e.g. doing an apprenticeship, and then going into different careers and different roles. So
you were at school 6 days a week. So does that mean you were going to school on a Saturday?
Yeah, Saturday. Honestly, to be fair, I think now they don't do that because maybe they realise there's some repercussions to children having 1 day of school rest. But it was definitely an experiment. We was the second cohort that was in that sixth form.
Interesting.
So it was almost.
Do you not want to like call the school out and be like, yeah, don't go here. No, don't go here.
No. Interestingly, I've actually, that school is a great school because I think it taught me a lot of skills. It's called Harris Westminster Sixth Form.
Amazing. And did you feel that you got like a good balance of options after sixth form? Because grammar schools generally are very university and traditional, academically focused. Did you feel like you got given like a balanced range of options of like
on top of that as well? Like what for everyone watching? I've always been really interested. Like Saturday school, what's the difference between a Saturday lesson and say a Monday lesson? Like what's the difference?
Not in much. I'll say Saturday school is shorter. So I think people would have protested we have to be in school at like 8 till 3:30 or whatever. So it was more like it was 9 to 1. I would say it depends on what kind of person you are. Like at the start, it was like, damn, this is my life for the next 2 years. But I'd say, you get used to it quite quickly. It's just, you have certain classes in the schools. Mostly we still had like a break.
Yeah.
A few years back now. But it just feels weird going to school in a suit and tie. Obviously with sixth form, you have to be formal. And then going to Westminster, I felt like I was working in, I was a politician or something. I was coming to school, So
talking about the working world then. So how did you find, for example, your apprenticeship? Was it something your teachers pushed or was it something you had to find in your spare time?
Yeah. Interesting. I'll be honest, back then, degree apprenticeships, apprenticeship general weren't as, this is 5 years back now. Yeah, weren't as popular as they are now. And I didn't really hear much about apprenticeships when I was at sixth form. Mainly because their purpose, they was literally made to help working class kids get into top universities. So I understand, if I'm honest, I understand what their purpose was to do. The way I found out about it was actually through a family friend who went to church. I went to church with, and I'm the oldest. I'm one of 3 siblings. I'm the oldest, so I never really had like an older sibling to look up to. So Kenan was my older sibling, and he worked at the Bank of England. And I didn't understand the time, but I knew it was like he was doing things quicker. He was doing things that other people he said you weren't doing. Like he had a car really at like 17, 18, moved out into his own place at that time. And I was like, how? And then he told me like he did an apprenticeship scheme at the Bank of England. And I did economics A level. And in economics, like the Bank of England's like, so it's an important part of your lesson of your learning. So I used to go to the Bank of England to meet him, get like the latest sort of like inflation reports. It sounds so nerdy. Get the latest inflation reports, get the latest sort of like reports about the economy, and bring it to class and be like, look, guys, like, forget this textbook. This is what I'm.
You was quite switched on then, like, and that's good. And would you say like you've always kind of been that way, right? And I've always found that through doing this podcast, talking to people, that these apprenticeships don't change who you are. If anything, they just accelerate who you are into a better version of yourself. Like for me, I've always been extremely inquisitive, and I believe that's how I landed my apprenticeship, which, I personally, I struggled with mine because 6 years ago, I was homeless with my mum. I left school with 0 GCSEs, and I was just very lucky to get it. I found my apprenticeship on a 6-page Google, mate. Right, I barely could find it, and that's why we basically made Apprentago and its beta feature to help people find apprenticeships, because even then you could be aware of them, but actually getting them's a different thing.
100%. So the question was like, do I feel like I had the skills already, or what made me want to be apprenticed? I'll say yes or no. I'll say what I definitely knew was I was entrepreneurial. I think many entrepreneurs have the sort of story of, you know, selling sweets in school. That's what I did. People have different reasons. My reason was because I wanted my dad to stop cutting my hair. My dad thought he was, I don't know why he thought he was a barber, but he really wasn't. I've had some shocking cuts. So you see my old school pictures. I used to have the Ronaldo. Do you watch football?
Yes.
The fat
R9, the R9 Ronaldo.
The Ronaldo,
oh, wow.
yeah, where just a bit of hair there and everything is gone. That was me. Like, imagine. So I think that's when my arc started. Like, I've got to change this. So yeah, so I felt like I've always wanted to learn by doing, and I've always wanted to have the power to influence my sort of like career and influence my journey through creative ways. And I just didn't feel like university alone would give me that experience and give me an opportunity. And then secondly, I'm also a young father, like, and at the time when I became a dad, which was when I was in year 13, I had to think about alternative options, like out of necessity. Going to uni was not impossible, but it would have made things more difficult. I had to find a way to earn an income, but I still wanted to continue my education. You know what I mean?
Can I ask, like, what advice would you have? Because a lot of people in our generation don't have children. A lot of people don't. A lot of people now who are like 30 don't. So for people who are starting in the world of work, being a graduate, doing an apprenticeship, what advice would you have to them, but to find that work-life balance? Not a word I'm a big fan of, but just finding something that you can do while being a young parent.
So you're saying, like, repeat the question, like,
basically. Look, no problem, man. It's just what advice do you have to other people who are like young parents that are just getting in their workplace or like doing stuff?
Man, that's a great question, because I think I'm still like in a position where I'm learning. You know what I mean? I would say your support system is probably the most important element. I think a lot of people know I'm a parent, likes public information, and I always remind people, you know, when they say, "Oh, you're doing well," like, it wasn't just because of my efforts. Like, my mum and the way my family reacted to me being a teen parent at the time, you know, that definitely affected the trajectory. Because some parents, you know, some people's parents are very black and white, like, they might not support their kid, but my parents weren't like that. So I think the support system you have, and hopefully being able to find one that really helps you, is important. And I would say leverage. I'm a big believer of like leveraging what you have to create more new outcomes and working smart. So, you know, with my son, I always think about, how can I link things I'm doing to support him? Like, you know, for example, if I'm doing projects, I'm thinking about what can I take from this to feed into me being a better parent? Like, what skills can I develop? You know, e.g., is it communication skills? Or what skills am I taking from being a parent? E.g., being able to prioritize better, being able to empathize, being able to be curious. And there's all the things I think I've learned as a parent, being able to see things simply, not overcomplicating situations. Yeah. I think those are the sort of things that allow me to take on, like, understand, like, there's benefits to being a young parent, and
again, I feel like it's kind of, I would say it's shunned upon, but it is, like, in today's world where it's like having kids early. I mean, I think if, you know, everything happens for a reason, right? God is basically the best storyteller that ever lived, and we've just got to carry on with it. And obviously, it's inspired you, and it's got you to where you are now. So, talk me about, like, how did you get mentored by the CEO of Tesco? How does that happen? Like, because there's thousands of people working at Tesco. How did you bump into him, man?
So interesting enough, I was an apprentice at Pearson, and I'm also working at Tesco now, and I've actually been mentored by both the CEOs. So, like, maybe it's like wherever I go, I want to be mentored by the CEO. But it happened before I joined Tesco, which I think is has been a very important element to like the work I do now and how I perceive the company. It was part of a program by a company called Arrival Education, and it was around a time where, you know, there was the really big Black Lives Matter movement in 2020, 2019, and companies who obviously wanted to improve diversity or just realized that they weren't doing enough. And I felt like some companies were just being performative, and some companies were putting their money where their mouth is. And Tesco said that we want our leaders to be like leadership is all about being able to understand different people's problems and you know serve people. So they did that program, and I applied, and we had to do a sort of a personality test in a way, and then we was actually matched to different execs in the company based on like personality and mindset, and I was matched to the CEO of UK in Tesco.
And for like people obviously who watch this and stuff, like, can you explain the difference between like working in the actual shop front versus working in the office? Because a lot of people don't see that. They think Tesco, they think, you know, shelf stacker, when in reality that's just one part of a massive organization.
So obviously most companies have sort of the operational element where that's customer facing, and other parts have, you know, a lot of the strategic and decision making element that are then affected and then affect those who are at the storefront. So obviously a head office and an in-store, and the thing is, like, it's all about, there's a massive operation here, which you would probably even think about if you wasn't working in retail space or in that company. Like, every single day you can wake up and go to your local store and hopefully find what you need. And you know, that takes a lot of, you know, and it's the quality's there. It's at the price that you know. Like, you don't wake up and new products are in there every single day. And then, like, I think companies like that are doing things that might seem sexy, but they're doing important things, which is feeding a country or feeding a nation.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
And so, for example, you're a product manager right now. For someone who's like, what's a product manager?
Yeah.
If you had to simplify that in a really understandable way, how would you describe what that role is on a tin?
Yeah, amazing. Great question. So product management is essentially all about being accountable for a product that you own, and it's about sitting in the cross section of three spaces: the business. More 3 or 4 the business, the user experience. So user experience could mean how customers interact with what you do. Technology, so the people who actually power what's been happening, and obviously customers as well. And you basically sit at the cross section of everything, being able to create solutions to customers' problems or problems in general. You're in charge of trying to find solutions.
It's like being a big brother, like a big sibling. I've always thought about it. Like, from everyone I've met that's done it. But obviously the question people are thinking, everyone at home, how much is Tesco discount, man? How much is that? Man, I want to know. Like, come on, man. You got to sell the company here.
I'm getting groceries for free every single day. Is that your public information? So get 10%. Is that drum roll is 10% off? Which is might not think it's that high, but it definitely helps. You know, every little helps, as Tesco says. But what they do is they put it up when it's like payday. It's really interesting because they obviously what's better than getting your employees that you just paid to put money back in the company.
Exactly.
Buy products that you buy. So yeah,
very smart move. And so from the sounds of it, a product manager is a very like entrepreneurial role, but within corporate. And some people think that to get like entrepreneurial skills, you have to just start your own business. And I think that's a great example of, you can be like an intrapreneur, which is basically like same skill set, but within a company.
Intrapreneur? I heard that word before.
Yeah, intrapreneur. So basically the concept of being an entrepreneur, but within an existing organization. So less stress.
Like being an innovation director, like that's basically an entrepreneur, where you're being paid, or your role is to think of new opportunities for the organization, or to explore new opportunities, which is what I love. That's what makes entrepreneurs. Like you guys, we see opportunities and we feel like we could do something to solve a problem or change something that's existingly there, and we can make it better.
So I'm gathering that's why, like, you started your own thing up with the company you're working with that's quite Gen Z led, because you've gone through everything you've gone through and you think, cool, you know what, right? I'm guessing here, right? You think, you know what, if my kid is going to be like 17, 18 one day, I need him to have the right information, the right opportunity. So I'm gathering that's why you started it.
Yeah. Definitely. I think access to information is obviously well spread now because of technology, but I think sometimes access to the right information isn't so well spread, and also access to the right knowledge. Cause I think knowledge, just applied information, is also not well spread, and that's all done from like people who've done it, advising those who are about to do it.
Absolutely.
And I think especially for like people from different maybe certain backgrounds or socioeconomic groups, it's much harder to get the right knowledge.
Definitely. I think people underestimate their ability to be a role model. You might think, oh, why would someone want to listen to me? But I think platforms such as LinkedIn are great for a new wave of like role models to come through. For example, the first time I came across Sam was on LinkedIn actually. So I think one piece of advice I'd give to a lot of young people is share your story.
Yeah.
You never know who's going to see that post on LinkedIn or be inspired by that journey or be inspired by that post or video you put up. Really put yourself out there. You'd be very surprised at, who might.
Well, that's how we basically found each other, because when we wanted to start the podcast, Haley was like, I want to do a podcast. And I think you'd be a great first guest. I said, well, I'm actually thinking of doing one as well. We had a half an hour call on a Saturday, back to the whole Saturday school thing, man. We have nothing to do. And that half an hour call turned into like a 9-hour virtual date, it felt like. We sat there, had lunch, had dinner together.
Lives.
Right, it was great. And we were like, come on, man, we want to make this work. And that's why we started. The aim for the podcast, and I've always kind of said this, is for a young person to watch this and think, you know what, my life might not be great in a minute, but look where it could be if I have the right information. Because it ain't simply about working hard, it's about working smart. But not everyone can. Working smart's a lot harder than it is working hard, which is, I want to say that 10 times.
But I mean, there's so much to touch on as well. But I think with your current role as product manager at Tesco, how do you feel like your degree apprenticeship at Pearson? So you did a business management degree apprenticeship, right? How did you leverage that skill set, being in a different industry as well, to then making the pivot into technology? And what made you want to make that pivot?
Yeah, good question. So in between those two companies, there's also like a middle part where I worked for a startup company who are in the edtech space, still in education, but edtech, and I think that's probably where a lot of things were leveraged as well.
Yeah.
So in terms of like me, the degree apprenticeship giving me the skills. One, I think degree apprenticeships are amazing ways to help like young people get a glimpse of like what the real working life is like, and I think that being able to understand how to like network, being able to understand, how to work on projects, how to work in a team, how to deliver value. Most importantly, I think that was what led me to soar and Pearson and do well. But then going to work from a big company to a smaller company was also important because I learned about the importance of working agile, like being able to have work in various environments, fast-paced environments. And I think what led me to being to a product management was because I just wanted to be able to apply my skills, of my entrepreneurial skills, better. As I mentioned, like from product management is a great place for people who are entrepreneurial cause you're basically being paid to explore opportunities and increase, either grow something or make things something more profitable and deliver value for customers, so customers keep using whatever the customers.
So what's the plan then, right? Because look at you 5 years ago. Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time? And that's quite a generic question, but it's the truth because obviously, mate, you're moving mountains. Right? You could literally look at your LinkedIn profile, which I recommend everyone to go and do that.
Thank you.
And it's like, holy shit, you're doing all this amazing stuff. So where do you see yourself, man?
Great question. I always feel like it's important not to have just like one path. Like I think life is all about options. And I think there's two paths. Like one path is me being like going to be a full-time entrepreneur. Like so, running my own, company, using the skills that from being a PM to build something that actually solves a problem at scale. I think that's what makes entrepreneurs successful. It's the scale of the problem. So doing that full time, maybe one day get an exit, sell it for X amount of millions, and then go back to like doing what I'm doing, like doing casual, retired or whatever. And then, or secondly, I think staying in the corporate space, but again exploring where being being an entrepreneur could take me. Maybe going into like being an innovation director, going into a growth space. I think as long as I'm working on, as long as I have the ability to always explore new opportunities and solve new problems and have the autonomy to think of solutions.
And have you had like any challenges from any of your employers when it comes to having your own side hustle? Because see, I work in investment banking in NatWest, and we're very, very regulated. And I have to declare quite a lot. They've never had a problem with it, but a lot of young people who are quite entrepreneurial, who are doing their degree apprentices, because we believe that a lot of degree apprentices are quite entrepreneurial anyway.
Of course.
And they're quite scared to start something, or they're doing it on the sly because their company finds out. So what advice would you have for them?
I would say it's important to be transparent, but at the same time, it's important because you don't know what sort of extra value or extra support you could get. I think it depends on your employer or your company, first of all. But yeah, try to obviously not let it affect your work. I think as long as you find something that affects your work, this is important. And then like, again, just try to leverage the resources you have at the moment. If you feel like you could have a side hustle where you are leveraging what you're learning, but obviously not being a competitor to your company, then yeah, you can explore it. But I think it depends on your and I think not everyone has to have a side hustle. Let's be honest. Some people can easily create a side hustle within the organization they're in, and I think it depends on the reasons you're doing it. If you're doing it for like maybe exposure reasons, or you're doing it for monetary reasons, then obviously cool, there might be a different approach. But I think if you're just doing it because you want to do more, you feel like there's an opportunity to take advantage of, think about maybe if there's a way you can utilize do it in your organization already, or maybe do it with a partner.
I think the key thing is to keep exploring and don't underestimate the skills it can give for your CV, because a lot of people think your CV is just made up of what you do in like your corporate job, where in reality a lot of the skills you can put onto your CV might come from just your personal circumstances, your side hustles, like you say, and lots of other things, and they can sometimes give you the edge. When you're interviewing,
they will
for roles.
Give the edge. They will give it
because there's hundreds of people out there, right, that are product managers, and you think product manager. We've always said to ourselves, right, when people apply for apprenticeships, so if you have 100 people in a room and they all have full triple A star grades, what gives you an unfair advantage? And that is who you are as a person, what makes you you. And I think that a CV is a kind of a good way of showing that, and also you being yourself. Because if you compare yourself to, say, another project manager, you can say, look, you might be 5 years older than me, but guess what? I've done X, Y, and Z.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
That's how we look at things.
And that's literally some of the points I make in my TED talk, which is titled "The Advantages of Being Disadvantaged," and it's all about like changing your perspective on some of your experiences and knowing like skills can come from unconventional ways and unconventional experiences. And in the talk, I talk about like, again, sort of my journey. And when I look at it in hindsight, the reason why I have these set of skills, because they actually stemmed from these experiences, which at the time were really tough, not pleasant, but because obviously you overcome them and you then learn from them, that then allows you to stand out. And some of the experiences come from being a degree apprentice, or come from going to school 6 days a week. Like, I know my work ethic is like above the average. Like, it's because it was normal for me when I was 17, 16 to wake up at 7 a.m. on a Saturday and get to school. Like, so of course, it's normalized to me that I need to put a bit more effort in, work a bit more harder. And also like the ability to feel comfortable in uncertain and unfamiliar situation environments. Like, I grew up in South East London. I grew up mainly in council estates, and the school I went to was like in the area. But when I went to the sixth form, I went straight from that into my school being next to Big Ben, next to the Parliament, have an assembly in Westminster Abbey where royals get wedded. And then having to juggle those two experiences and knowing that this is a new experience, this is a new environment. I've got to find a way to, maneuver here. Picking up things, and I think that's what's allowed me to again flourish in corporate, because a lot of times most people don't look like me or come from my background, but I still need to know how to work for them, how to get my points across, how to speak to people, and I think I'm comfortable with that. But a lot of people who stay in their bubble, or maybe they've gone to a school
Yeah.
It's going to college in certain areas. In uni, they stay with, you don't really get that.
They have the same 5 friends for life. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that, right, to an extent, but it's also how you want to picture yourself, because you don't talk to everyone the same. I've always said you don't talk to your mum the same way you talk to your boss.
Yeah, of course.
Right? Even though you might be close with both of them, you can't talk to them the same way.
Yeah.
And like what you said really resonates with us, because Ada, like, again, your story is pretty similar to his, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I think location is such a big perspective shift. Like for me, the shift was when I went from a state school ranked bottom 3 in England to then going to a sixth form, which was literally like down the road. But for me, it felt like a private school or a grammar school because of the comparison of what I had to kind of deal with and like work 100 times harder to not become a product of that environment.
Yeah.
And then it's weird because then the environment's suddenly a lot better and you think, oh, that skill set I developed, that resilience, that adversity is actually giving me an upper hand now because I've learned to do something that other people didn't have to learn because of that experience. And I think that's exactly what you're kind of alluding to with the concept of like flipping being disadvantaged on its head, because on paper you might say, oh, poor you, like that was really hard and you were super disadvantaged. But then I think it gives me an advantage in some ways as well, because I've developed a skill set that I didn't really realize at the time that is helping me succeed.
Which you have to develop. And the issue is like, it's not skill sets that are not needed. Like these are things that people might develop later on.
Yeah.
But you've had the upper hand because you've done it from a younger age.
Yep.
And if you could bottle that up and you could sell that, imagine you would be a billionaire. If you could teach someone, right, with a single click or a single spray with AI or technology, how to be resilient, how to take accountability, how to give constructive criticism. Because that's one of the things that we talk about quite a lot, is how feedback and personality tests in schools aren't a lot. We just done a podcast that was basically saying, look, if you're spending your 2 years of your life to sit your A levels and you get feedback and it's literally 3 sentences that this was quite good but not great, that's going to destroy you, especially if you're neurodiverse like me. And I think that I can't believe how technology's not come into place where like an audio file's not given to you that says, hey, you know what, your exam was really, really well. However, I do believe that if you included this into this part, it would have been great for you, because we noticed that school can be a massive enabler, but it also can be a massive like thing that can disable you as well.
Yeah. I think it's basically about self-awareness. Do you feel like your degree apprenticeship gave you a lot of self-awareness?
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. I would say I was already a little bit sort of like aware of myself and always thinking about how do I come across and my perceptions. I think it stemmed from, again, like from my sixth form and also being like a young father, like I always thought about how am I coming across. But in my degree apprenticeship, I think that stems way more because like you're being plunged into situations where you might have to, you have to stand out, you have to present, you have to share your thoughts, share your opinions, and then I think those are sort of like things.
No, I love that. And in terms of what you're doing now with Word of Mouth and some of the work you're doing in schools, I'd love for you to talk a bit about, I guess, like giving back. A lot of people, they have their roles, but there's also things they want to do for their local communities. They want to inspire the next generation, and I love that about you, because you're doing so much to give back. Tell us a bit about what you're doing in your own way to give back.
Yeah, 100%. So Word of Mouth has been an organisation in various forms that I've started since I was 16. What it is now is a recruitment marketing agency, but we also have an arm. And the aim is to like also help young people navigate their careers, so helping them navigate careers through content and programs. And we have an arm of the work we do, which is actually looking at helping young people in schools upskill to get them land apprenticeships, and that's called the Apprenticeship Advantage Program. And the aim is to be able to support those who were like me, who apprenticeship was perfect for them, but they had to they may not have had the access or knowledge or even the skills to know this is what employers look for. This is how I make myself stand out, so they can land top apprenticeships. Like data shows that these apprenticeship schemes aren't going to those who are made to support.
It's being made to, in the nicest way, middle class families, or even worse, just literally people who work for the company. Like, a bit controversial. We saw the other day on LinkedIn that JP Morgan had launched next year's work experience for kids across the country. It's open for 24 hours and it's only been posted on LinkedIn.
Really?
And that personally kind of, you know, that struck me quite deep, because I thought to myself, one, I didn't know who JP Morgan was when I was 16. And two, right, you're telling me I've got 24 hours to apply and it's only advertised on LinkedIn. And I said, imagine what that's like for degree apprentice, because basically the exact same thing. And I can really like see where you're coming from by how you want to centralize information. And it's really like, I know life's not fair, but come on, man.
It's that problem of like, you don't know what you don't know. And sometimes there are really super talented young people who would be perfect for certain degree apprenticeship roles, job opportunities in general, who just don't even know that world exists. And the problem is, how do you make them aware that there's another world? Like there's another path that they don't know about. And that's basically what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to shine a light on the fact that, listen, there's another way. No one's telling you because of your background or your circumstances, which is why I think it's so important to have role models. Like real models, right? Like real people who, once they're in these opportunities, like, you know, you are, or I am, or Carlo is, you like pass the baton on, you like pave the way, you leave the door open, you shout about it, and you use your voice, whether that's on LinkedIn, on social media, whatever you can do to try and make it easier for the next person like you to come in. I think that's how, it'll take time, but that's how you get change. And if everyone does that in their own way, that's ultimately how I think you'll get more diversity within organizations.
And like, the mission for the degree apprenticeship, the Apprenticeship Advantage, is to help 10,000 working class students get into top apprenticeship schemes. So, quote unquote top obviously can mean various things, but in terms of like what they pay or industry or level. And I feel like the way we're going to approach it is like, being able to go into the schools where companies wouldn't have any sort of exposure to. You know, and being able to provide the key real insight knowledge from current apprentices about what apprenticeships are like, give them the option to be like, yes, it's what you're being shown in general. However, if you fit these criteria, maybe explore this avenue. And then as a result, also tell them, here are what employers actually look for in terms of in the application, in the CV, in an interview. And as a result, companies who always say, and the thing is, I speak to companies, employers a lot from my work with word of mouth around how they struggle to attract and recruit diverse Gen Z talent. And the issue is always like, we don't get enough applications, and all what we do get isn't at the standard that we feel like, you know, they can come in. And we're basically solving those two issues, because you know, if you're struggling to attract talent in, even it could even ethnicity, or it could be people where people live, and your only approach you're doing is social media. Not every young person's on social media, and every person's going to see that, but every young person has to go to school in this country. That's where if you want to target at those demographic, you have to go to the schools. And not, I think people don't want to do the work. When we want to do the work, we're happy to do the work. So we're working with companies also to see like if you're having issues in terms of like recruiting, or you have target demographics, target areas, we can go into those schools in those areas, kind of talk about your apprenticeship program via our program, and as a result, help you hit those targets.
And again, right, a lot of people might think, well, that sounds really good, but what does he get out of it? And I'm like, the point is you're seeing a gap in the market, but two, you're not doing it because you want to be greedy. You're doing it because you realise that I went through that, and most of all, I don't want my child to go through that. And that's the main thing. But listen, I just want to thank you very much for coming on the podcast. Where can people find you? All right, just give a quick shout out. Go on.
So as everyone, LinkedIn has been the platform we spoke about today. So you can find me on LinkedIn, Sam Okusaga, Instagram as well, Sam Okusaga, and that's where you can find all the links to things.
Don't do no like day in the life on TikTok.
I do use TikTok, but TikTok's actually mainly like dad content. So if you're interested in like seeing life of a young dad who works, you can share stuff like that. So Sam Okusaga. On all platforms.
No problem. I'll put all the links in the description below. Thank you so much for being on, Sam, and we really look forward for you to listen next time, or we'll be joined by another exciting guest.